Yo, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet Violet VGC video. I'm your host, Jose Rocks, and today we're going to be getting into the recent Portland Regional that just passed. I want to just get into some meta building that Michael Zhang, he has this Twitter page called Eternal Snowman, and he has a really cool breakdown on his page on how the meta is evolving and just how to build around common teams. So if you guys want to learn how to build some common cores, then this is going to be the video for you. I'm going to show you how to get to his page, which is on Twitter. You're pretty much going to look right here, Eternal Snowman. Just type that in your Twitter search box and you'll be able to get to it, right? So what I want to go over is this cool breakdown that he has over the metagame. So we'll start here. Let's see if we can go page to page. Yeah, it does. Okay, perfect. So we'll go through each one. We'll start with the first screenshot. This pretty much displays, these are the teams that after the regional finish, these are the teams that are in A tier, right? These are the teams that are in S tier. These are the teams that are in B tier, C tier, D tier, and the winners and losers, right? So if we look, Kyogre and Calyrex actually was a team that won the whole tournament. This is a duo that I was advocating at the very beginning of the format. I thought that it was really good. I thought that it had a lot of potential. I felt like Calyrex Ice really liked being in the rain to help deal with some of those fire types that it doesn't like. A lot of the fire types that can resist glacial lands, Kyogre just deals with them, right? Especially things like Incineroar, which can kind of annoy Calyrex to sit in front of it. It doesn't want to sit in front of a Kyogre, right? Vice versa, things like Rillaboom, Kyogre doesn't want to be in front of a Rillaboom. Calyrex Ice can just deal with that, right? So it's really cool in that aspect. Calyrex Ice also helps deal with the Miraidon, which Kyogre doesn't want to deal with. And Kyogre also helps deal with just a lot of plethora of other restricteds that Calyrex Ice has trouble with. Kyogre can help deal with them. So it's a really cool duo. I thought that it had a lot of good synergy, and I'm not surprised to see it win there. And it is really good. I'm happy to see we had a winner, Gavin Michaels. I believe it's his first tournament of the season. He hasn't played in a very long time. Maybe it might be his second. And he instantly qualified for Worlds. He actually needed that to qualify for Worlds. So that was really cool that he was able to do that. So we look on the chart right here. It looks like Koraidon plus Shadow Rider has risen. That's really cool to see because I felt like it was also a really strong duo. And I felt like it had a lot of potential as well. This kind of used to be an S tier. And you see it dropped by one tier, which is interesting because it just won. And I still feel like it's strong. It actually feels like it's strong into this duo, but it got outshined in this tournament. I think it's just a tournament specific that this was just a meta call for this tournament, but I still think that this duo is like one of the best duos in the game, right? These are two neutral duos. I think that Terapagos is a little bit underlooked. There is a lot of Koraidon and Zamazenta right now, which it doesn't like to see, but you're able to survive those hits if you play with redirection and intimidate and just having ghost terrors and things like that. Redirection can just help support the Terapagos so it can thrive against those, right? And Koraidon doesn't really like taking a psychic from a Calyrex Shadow, which is a good teammate for it. And also, like, if you have like ground type teammates, I would say like Ursaluna, things like Landorus, they can also help Terapagos deal with like the Zamazenta, right? So it's really cool for that. So I think that it does need a lot of support, but when it does get that support, man, does it feel good. And we already know what the Kali Shadow Zamazenta duo does. So B tier, Swordfish. There was a couple teams that were Swordfish. It did really good. I still think Zacian is a little bit underplayed in this format. I think that the right partner for it, every time I watch it play, it feels so strong. And even when I play against it, right, you think that Intimidate is an issue for it, but then when you're playing alongside Kyogre, then Intimidate is really not a big deal, right? So it's really cool in that aspect. C tier, this is very surprising to see Nightlight drop this far. This is a really strong duo. Won, the first tournament that was broadcast, and it's dropped off. People are just knowing what to deal with it. People aren't really worried about Lunala that much anymore. Both Lunala teams, even Lunala Koraidon, also dropped the C tier. So Lunala, I think, like I said, I think this is a tournament call. I personally think Lunala is better than Zamazenta as a Wyguard user. There was a couple of like Solgaleo that was playing too, that's also a Wyguard user, but they were using like weakness policy. So that's pretty interesting to see. So if you look at his little message here, This is pretty much a shakedown, so we can read through this. He has 1 through 10, so it's 10 tweets. So we go to the next one. So there were no S tier duos. This is just based on the current regional, not the metagame as a whole, because he didn't feel like there were any, outstanding duos. I felt like a really balanced duo with a lot of variance, and I think that's healthy for the metagame. All right, so the next one we have the BBS. So this duo is pretty cool. So this is a way that you can build this team, right? You need leech seed to make this team, reach its peak, and that's why he has it highlighted right here. And pretty much how you use this to build, you're gonna select one of these two, both of these two, right? You select Incineroar plus Grimmsnarl, or you're gonna select Ferrograph and Iron Hands, right? So Ferrograph Grimmsnarl gives you screens, gives you Intimidate, gives you a lot of damage mitigation. But Ferrograph and Iron Hands offer, more damage output than these two, and also a lot more utility as far as like stopping priority and giving you access to a secondary Trick Room user, so you're not solely relying on Calyrex to play Trick Room if you want to really support the Iron Hands, right? So these two as a lead are really strong in setting up Trick Room, because you can't fake out Iron Hands. It can fake you out, and then Ferrograph usually doesn't get one shot, especially with like a good Terra. So it's interesting to see that, right? So then you'll go down. You'll always use Urshifu and then one of these two ground types. My preference is really Ursaluna. I think that Ursaluna is so threatening on the Trick Room into a lot of the other restricteds. And Landers, it did just win a regional, but I do feel like it's a little bit slow compared to some of the other restricted. It just gets one shot by Draco Meteor, unless you're running like something like Fairy Terra, which is kind of niche. But then if you do Fairy Terra and Miraidon Fairy Terras and it just Dazzle and Gleam, then you're not in a good spot either way, right? So I personally think Ursaluna is better, but I can see where it can be good on a more offensive team. You see that Michael Kelch was running the Incineroar Grimmsnarl plus Urshifu and Landorus team, right? So he totally forgot these two. But on the other hand, you can swap out these two for Ogerpon and the Volcarona, which gives it a little bit more redirection and support. And it can also pair with these two, right? But I do think that you choose this, and you can go like Iron Hands Ferrograph plus Urshifu and Ursaluna or Landers, or you can go like this, where you go Incineroar, Grimmsnarl, and Volcarona plus Ogerpon, right? So you can go any amount of ways in order to make this core really work. So it's really cool, and I like it a lot. The next core we have is the White Whale. I think that, like I said, this is the one that won the tournament. I was advocating for this duo before Regulation I officially started, and I had the first team I actually featured was a choice-based Kyogre with Calyrex Ice, but they took it to the next level with the Leech Seed. Kyogre's also running 3 water attacks, just like I was. I chose choice specs, but I chose to drop Thunder for Hydro Pump because Hydro Pump is really good in this format, and this Kyogre also ran Hydro Pump. So it's interesting to see that, Basculegion was able to win. I believe he had Grimmsnarl, he didn't have Rillaboom, and Flutter. So Grimmsnarl, Flutter Mane, Basculegion, and Amoonguss was the duo that he had, and he was able to win with it. I personally like Urshifu a little bit better than Basculegion. I can see Basculegion, the ghost type, being immune to fake out, being able to, have speed control with the Swift Swim is really cool. And also, Flutter Mane was also a weird pick for this team for me too. But he went with it, right? The double ghost, so he was able to get around fake out. I personally would like to see like Urshifu plus, I think I like Iron Jugulus. I like the Tailwind aspect of giving Kyogre a Tailwind, and probably Grimmsnarl. Rillaboom's good too, but you already have Amoonguss. I have seen a lot of people go double grass, because what you're able to do is switch Rillaboom in on the electric terrain and then Spore with the Amoonguss, right? So, that can be a pretty cool duo. But I probably would go Grim Jugulus. The double darks just feels really good into like a meta with Calyrex Shadow. And you don't have any other ghost resistance other than those two. So having double dark that can sit in front of Calyrex is just really good in my opinion. You have Thunder Wave, you have Tailwind, you have Snarl with Jugulus. So you have a lot of damage mitigation. And this allows Calyrex and the Kyogre to be a little bit more bulky. You could drop Amogus for Rillaboom, but that's not the the plan that they did here. For this team, they always feel like you need Amogus to make this team work. But I personally think you can swap out Amogus. Like if I had to build it, I would probably, like I said, I built a similar team, but I was using like Indeedee, Rock Ogerpon, Tornadus, and Urshifu, just a little bit more hyper offense slash Tailwind slash Trick Room. But I would drop Amogus because I just don't like the mind game of going for the Spore with so much Miraidon in the field. And I would probably go Rillaboom, Jugulis, Grimmsnarl, Urshifu, Kyogre, and Calyrex, right? And that feels pretty solid to me. It has a lot of counterplays, a lot of different things. If you maximize the terrors on your mons, then you're able to have a lot of fun with that. But that's how I would build it. Next we have Ghost Rider. This is pretty much Koraidon and Calyrex Shadow. Now this also is done really well, right? So they always run Weezing on these teams, and you pick 3 of the ones on the right? So you either go Dondozo, Tatsugiri plus like Brubonnet or Chi-Yu. I don't think you run Dondozo, Tatsugiri plus Walking Wake, or maybe you could. I haven't actually seen a Cineroar on these comps, but they just threw that in there because it still fits on these comps. But the one that I've seen a lot is the Walking Wake and Brubonnet. And occasionally we see the Dondozo plus Brubonnet and the Weezing, Calyrex, and Koraidon. So this also feels really good. It feels really strong. Weezing being able to turn off abilities and have an ability shield on the Koraidon, this allows you to be very disruptive. The only thing that I don't like about Weezing is that it kind of sits on the field a lot and just doesn't do anything for the most part, right? And that just doesn't feel good when you're stuck out on the field and you're not able to do much. So it's an interesting duo. I think that you could probably try dropping Weezing and then using 4 of the mons on the right, but a lot of people seem to think that Weezing is absolutely needed on this comes to work, but a lot of people know how to play around Weezing and make it feel really useless. And I've played with Weezing sometimes. It feels like it's the best Pokemon in the format, and then other times it really feels really, really bad. And it's like, it kind of like just loses you the game because it sits there, doesn't do nothing. If they have an Amogus in the back, they can soak up the Toxic Spike, so they're not really worried about that, right? And if they have a lot of good healing, like against like a Calyrex with Leech Seed and like Rillaboom Recovery plus like Pollen Puff, like the poison doesn't even matter at that point, right? So it can make it feel really bad. All right, so New Moon is also another comp where I think this should be called Nightlight. In my opinion, I really like the fact that it's an electric type and a dark type. So you can, I'm not a dark type, but a ghost type that's known for being at night, right? So you can kind of call it Nightlight. Some people, saying some other stuff that they're calling it. But I think that it's still a really strong. I think that, you can either go with either one of these. I think that the Whimsicott set might be the one to bring this set back. I think that it did bad because a lot of people were using the Grimmsnarl, and it's just too known of a core, right? And I think that Whimsicott being able to switch it up a little bit will help this core thrive. But I still think that it's strong. You can also like replace the Lunala with something else. I think that this may be a good team for Zacian to go on if you still keep the Grimm and play towards screens with Zacian and swap out the Zacian for Lunala. I think that can be a strong team, and I haven't seen a lot of people experiment with it, but I think that that's another way to unlock Zacian, because Zacian feels really good next to Miraidon. Zacian really threatens a lot of terrors, and when your opponent has to terror and they can't terror something else, then a lot of the other components on this team are able to sweep really easily. But I still like this core. All right, the Robot Chicken core. So I think Iron Bundle is a meta call. That's just my opinion. I think that a lot of people are asleep on it being a really good teammate to Miraidon, and just being able to help you win those speed ties, be like the fastest thing in the format without Tailwind or like other speed control other than like just a booster energy. And it's really speedy, man. And with the Icy Wind, you just allow everything on your team to outspeed. I still think it's really solid. I'm seeing a lot of people try out Treads. I think that you're kind of throwing if you use Treads plus Ho-Oh, in my opinion. I just don't, you could Earthquake and stuff, but I think that Ho-Oh already is not like a top tier restricted. It's a good restricted, but not top tier. And then using another Mon that's not top tier as a non-restricted, I feel like it kind of holds the team back a little bit, right? So if I had to pick 2, I would go, of course, we would go Furgraph, Iron Hands, and then I would probably go Ursaluna plus the Iron Bundle. That way you could play on the Trick Room and outside of Trick Room, right? I don't think Grim is really needed on this team because this team aims to, with Bundle, you want to be a little bit more hyper offense. Screens is not really going to help Bundle, but if you want to play a slower place, you can just go Grim plus Ursaluna and drop these two, and that way you have a bulkier team that's harder to remove, right? But either way you go, I kind of like this duo. So these are the winners. Like I said, Among Us has shown a rise in its popularity, but I think it's because Miraidon did not do good at this tournament. But when Miraidon is at its peak, which it probably will be at NAIC and at the World Championships, I really think that Among Us is really going to struggle because you can't just click Spore. You got to do like things like use Terapagos to get rid of electric terrain on things like Indeedee Rillaboom. And sometimes it just feels bad to have both of them on the field, and if that play doesn't work out, or if your opponent doesn't allow you to, get those spores up, then it just feels really bad. I think Weezing also is going to fall off. Like I said, I think all of these are kind of like Metacalls. Like, Kyogre is one of my favorite restricteds, but I think they were just good for the Portland regional. Like, I think all of them are probably going to fall off for NAIC, but we'll see. I think a lot of people are going to be more prepared for Kyogre, so it's going to do a little bit worse. And I think that Groudon, with a lot of people trying to use Kyogre, it's going to make it harder for it to thrive, even though it doesn't necessarily need the sun. It activates a lot of its partners. And just having rain is one of the reasons why Groudon, why it did do good in this tournament. Ultimately, I felt like it went down to rain teams because it's just shutting off his sun. But if you're not going against rain, then Groudon kind of feels amazing. I think the new innovation with the bulk up set, a lot more people need to try to look into that, because I think Groudon can be really hard to deal with a couple of bulk ups. Then the Precipice Blaze are just doing massive amounts of damage. But we'll see how they do. I'm going to be competing in NAIC myself, so if any of you guys are following the channel, I hope to see you guys out there. And I don't want to give away my sauce for what I'm using just yet, but I think it's going to be a very fun tournament. And Miraidon and Ho-Oh. Now, Ho-Oh I agree with is one of the losers of this tournament, but Miraidon is, to me, it's still the best Pokemon in the format. It's the best restricted. I think it's better than Calyrex Shadow because it plays a little bit more consistent and it offers more immediate damage output than Calyrex Shadow does. And it forces clear counterplay. Like if you lead it, people have to switch in their Rillaboom. They have to go for those ground terrors. And when you have Calyrex, all you really have to do is set up a screen, and they're not taking KOs until they get a boost, right? So I think that while Calyrex Shadow and Ice are really good too, I think Miraidon is just a step above them because it doesn't need to set up. It doesn't need to take turns to get ready and stuff like that. It can immediately just go on offense, or you can play it bulky, which is really cool. So that's just my opinion on those two. But that's gonna be it for this list. That's pretty much everything in it. He did make another list for the previous tournament. I think it was Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Was it Milwaukee? I forgot what tournament it was, but he also made these lists. But these are pretty much the same, cores that we just went over. It doesn't look like there's anything different in these. Let's just see. Oh, the Calyrex Shadow Zamazenta core. So if you guys didn't know how to, build that core, if you still want to build around it, use these two and you pick any of these four. If I had to pick, I kind of I like the hyper offense version of it, where you have Urshifu, Chien-Pao, Tornadus, and then Rillaboom and Incineroar. But I can see, Raging Bolt fitting in. I really don't like Among Us in this format, but I get it. It's Among Us. It's always going to be good. But I just think, for me, it's the electric terrain, man. Every time I play against Among Us and I have Miraidon, I'm never worried about it, right? And most opponents don't even bring it. But I guess when you don't play against Miraidon, which will be rare, Among Us is really solid to those other teams. But you can also use Brute Bonding and stuff like that. But another bulky core you can just really go with Rillaboom, Among Us, Incineroar, and Urshifu, or even Raging Bolt over the Among Us. And this team can be really bulky from that aspect. Tornadus really does help this team because this team somewhat likes rain. Chien-Pao likes rain against the fire type attacks. Rillaboom, Among Us, Urshifu, and Zamazenta all like to play in rain. And Raging Bolt doesn't mind being in rain either. It likes going up against rain. So that's also a really cool duo. And then you got the Terapagos and Calyrex Shadow, which is Terapagos. Incineroar, of course, you pick 3. I like Rock Overpond. I'm actually surprised not to see Clefairy here. I think Clefairy is underused because Clefairy makes it so that you could take pretty much, if you're max HP, max defense, you take, I think, just a little bit under 50% from close combat, and then you can terror to get your health back, and then you'll be able to be a 2-hit KO or a 3-hit KO with the if you have like grassy terrain. So I really, grassy terrain and leftovers, right? You can make close combat a 3-hit KO with Clefairy. A lot of people don't know that, but it's a cool strategy that you can use that people may catch people off guard. And to be honest, once Urshifu drops his defenses once, you should really be able to KO it back in return with your Terrapagos, especially if you set up a Calm Mind. So I think Clefairy could fit in as like a 6 Pokemon down here, and then you pick any 3 from that, and you kind of make it work from there. But I think it's slept on. I think Clefairy is a really good teammate for these two. And you also can go with, if you remember, they had these setup Calyrex they used to play alongside Clefairy back in Sword and Shield, and even in Regulation G, you still had the setup, Rillaboom and Cineroar plus Clefairy for redirection. So just think about Clefairy in that slot, and I think it can be really good. And that's the Robot Chicken. Here's a Swordfish combo. You guys want to know how to build a Swordfish team? I personally like Tornadus because Priority Tailwind just feels a lot better than having to use your ability, because these kind of suffer from like, I guess it happens to Tornadus too. If your abilities are getting turned off, you can't use Pressure Tailwind, right? But if you're going against like a Whimsicott or opposing Tornadus, then these two can kind of get outsped and KO'd if they lead the right Mon next to Tornadus or Whimsicott, right? But I guess either one, it's not a lot of cases where they're not gonna get their Tailwind up. So I can see why you can use any of them. I just prefer Tornadus, but actually, I think Jugulis is the bulkiest out of them, because Roaring Moon is really just easily one-hit KO by a straight fairy move, and you don't really have to worry about Jugulis getting one shot by a fairy move because it's not 4 times weak to it, and you can make it super bulky, right? To take a Moonblast from like Fluttermane or like a random Draining Kiss or something from Calyrex Shadow if it's running that fairy set. But I like Incineroar here too. Arnhez is also good if you're gonna play like towards a Trick Room mode. Just have the Trick Room option so you can play against those Trick Room teams. And then you got the Koala, which is Koraidon and Lunala with the bear. And then there's the Brubonnet. We know Brubonnet's a really good meta call here. I think this team is interesting to build around also. It's one of the first teams I built around too, but of course I use Indeedee. He doesn't have Indeedee here. Because Lunala already is used to running Y-Guard, people expect Y-Guard. And I just ran like Expanding Force on it, and it just felt really strong. And we already saw this duo. I believe we saw the Ghost Rider duo. Yeah, we did. So that's gonna be it for that tournament. So we just went through that. I'm gonna do another video when he posts another one of these. I think these are really fun to look at these different archetypes and how to build around them. If you didn't know about this page, like I said, you can follow him here. This is Michael Zhang, and I think this is something that's really cool. He announced this during the Portland Regional, and I had no clue about it. But once I went to his page, it just made it seem a lot more fun to team build. But just be aware that when you do team build with these type of mons, there's a lot more people that are going to be team building the same way, right? So if you want to get a step up on the game, you can see these archetypes and find ways to build counters into all these counters, because people are going to be using his spreads like as far as Pokemon to like build their teams. You just won't know what their sets are, right? But they're going to be using them to like build competitive and balanced teams, and I feel like that's what's good. If you just want to get started, you're not really good at team building, and this is a good starting place for you to start building a balanced team, right? Just use these examples. But that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys like this type of content, go ahead and subscribe for me, turn on those post notifications. Stay tuned for more new content. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, and the closer we get, I'm gonna actually start doing some more things on this channel once we do hit it. So if you guys, haven't been following yet, but you watch the videos, I really appreciate if you leave a subscription. But that's gonna be it for this video. I will catch you guys in the next one. Stay tuned. More new videos soon. Deuces.